Now, new research from the Irish Osteoporosis Society has found that more and more young people are trying clean eating diets, which promote cutting out major food groups such as dairy, which of course is a source of vital nutrients for good bone health. Now, with bloggers and food writers like Deliciously Ella and the Helmsley sisters now distancing themselves from the term clean eating, what exactly are the dangers of this food fad? Well, the CEO of the Irish Osteoporosis Society, Michelle O'Brien, and consultant nutritionist Gay Godkin join us now to explain the dangers of these diets. You're both very welcome. Gay, I'm going to start with you. So two very obvious questions. Clean eating diets, what are they and why are they bad for us?
Well, it's interesting because I've never heard of a nutritionist recommending a clean eating diet. So these clean eating diets are coming from bloggers, people who have absolutely no scientific qualification, no nutritional qualification. And it's something that has emerged in the last couple of years, and it's just a trend that started. So basically what I know of them, and I don't read a lot of their blogs, is they cut out major food groups out of the diet based on something they've read on Google, which is a really, really bad idea. And it's a really bad idea for young people to be following this kind of thing. You know, just because it's trending does not mean it's good for you. We need to eat foods from all food groups. Great that you can cut out the processed foods. That's hugely important. Things like fizzy drinks are so bad for bone health. You know, there's no doubt about it. Any of the studies that have been done looking at people who consume even one can a week have a dramatic effect on bone health.
But Gay, the idea that you would cut out dairy, I mean, everybody in this country, because obviously we've got such a strong agricultural stroke dairy culture. I mean, we all grew up with get milk into you, get cheese into you, it's good for bones. So why in the name of God? And I mean, that's, you know, that's kind of an old wives' tale, but also there's an awful lot of sense in that because people have been doing it for generations. So why in the name of God would you want to cut an entire food group like dairy out? Well, I mean, even if it's a pseudoscience or a pseudo diet or whatever, what's the thinking behind it?
Well, again, it's not something that a nutritionist would be recommending, you know, to cut out dairy out of your diet. Now, we have to remember that there are some people who have genuine dairy allergies and genuine dairy intolerances. And in that case, you can get calcium from lots and lots of other sources besides dairy. For example, sardines would have a much higher amount of calcium in there than dairy products. And if you look at countries like Japan, so Japanese women don't get osteoporosis. They don't get it and they don't have dairy in their diet. Why? Because they eat a lot of a thing called natto. So when you're looking at osteoporosis, we all zone in on calcium a little bit too much. The biggest issue in Ireland is we've no vitamin D. So it doesn't matter how much calcium you take into your diet. If you don't have vitamin D, it's not transported into your bone. And similarly, you need vitamin K. So when you're looking at osteoporosis, you need a whole orchestra of nutrients to A, build your bone, and B, prevent bone from broken down. Osteoporosis is a disease whereby certain bone cells are cleaving away more bone than they're building. So you have osteoblasts building bone and you've osteoclasts cleaving bone, taking away the old bone. And all of the a lot of the medication that's used to treat this is treating the part of the bone cells that the cleavers, to stop them cleaving the bone away and to increase the building of bone. So it's a very what would you call it, broad science around osteoporosis. It's not simply calcium. Okay, well, there's some of the science. Michelle, the actual effect, where does this leave us? And what's how widespread is the effect and what's the cost of it?
It's detrimental, basically. The cost of it in 2013 was 500+ million. It's estimated to go to 1 billion by 2025. But it's the effects on the individuals. 60% of bone is laid down between 8 and 20. So young people going on these fad diets, they are setting themselves up for pain, disability, loss of independence. And people say, oh, but it's an old lady's disease. It's not. 1 in 4 men over 50, 1 in 2 women over 50 have osteoporosis. We've 8 and 10-year-olds with it. So by cutting out these food groups, they're setting themselves up for not only osteoporosis, but eating disorders. And those with anorexia, bulimia, if they don't get help, they're going to end up disfigured. And eating disorders are a body image disease. So it's sort of quite ironic that they're starving themselves or vomiting up their food to be thin, but they're going to end up with humps on their back, broken bones. It's crazy.
It is. I mean, let's face it, our bones make up our skeleton, which is the frame that everything else hangs on. So therefore, if you undermine the basic strength of that, or undernourish it, or do you do something that damages it fundamentally, everything else that is dependent on its place in your body and operating properly is compromised.
Exactly, and that's what people don't realise. More women die from the secondary effects of broken bones than the combined deaths of cancer of the ovaries, the uterus and the cervix.
How now, that's an astonishing fact, but how does that happen?
Because the person develops a blood clot, pneumonia or infection. So even on their death cert, that's what's written. It doesn't say this is a secondary effect of either undiagnosed or untreated osteoporosis. What's more shocking is the male statistics. More men die from the secondary effects of fractures than prostate cancer. So this is why everyone needs to check, do they have risk factors?
Now, these are, obviously, you're the chair of the Osteoporosis Society, so I'm not going to argue with facts, but these facts are supported by what? The World Health Organization, or where do they come from?
Yes, there's research done. There isn't a lot in Ireland, but we're equivalent to the UK and the States. Very little money has been put into the osteoporosis area.
And of course your mother is Professor Moira O'Brien, who's one of the country's leading experts, if not in this area, and one of Europe's leading experts in this area. So I think we can safely say you know what you're talking about.
I've learned from the best.
The basis of these diets, Gay, one of the reasons why I think they've taken off is because they're couched in very pseudo-scientific ways, that it appears as if they've done a lot of research and all this other stuff and yo-yo dieting and all this. We know all of this is bad, but if you listen to us and you remove these food groups that are, say, for example, high in fat, whether they're good fat or bad fat is neither here nor there, then it all seems very plausible. So how does your normal punter know that this is bad for you?
Well, they don't, and that's the issue, as Michelle has just outlined. They actually don't know. As I said to you, osteoporosis, the science that's coming out around bone health and bone cells is absolutely fascinating, because bone cells come from the immune system. So it's not, as I said, as straightforward as just having dairy products. Dairy is actually a very good food to eat. And I mean, these bloggers are telling people, oh, don't eat dairy, it's got pus cells. No, it doesn't. I mean, they're using this kind of language that's kind of frightening people. Fair enough, if you have a dairy issue, then you have to work with your nutritionist or your dietitian to replace the nutrients and the calcium and get the right foods in there that are equivalent. That's where it's all falling down. People are going on fad diets, they're going on crash diets, they're getting information from the wrong sources. And can I also say to you that people who are eating meat 2 and 3 times per day, bodybuilding, that also has a deleterious effect on your bone health, because you cannot eat that amount of protein and still have the same amount of calcium in your bone. High protein diets like those turkey burgers 3 times a day, you will leach calcium out of your bone. And that's another thing. So it's, again, it's everything that's in the extreme is causing all of the difficulties.
OK, very quickly, Michelle, you made the point that not a lot of people think osteoporosis, brittle bone, it's an old person's disease. But of course, you've come across people who are 5, 10, 15 years of age, kids who have osteoporosis. One of the simplest ways to discover whether you have or not is a DEXA test. How do people go about doing that?
All they need to do is contact the Osteoporosis Society and we can tell them where there is one located. But we only recommend a DEXA scan of the spine and hips. We do not recommend ultrasounds of heels or shins, etc., which is what's going on in some areas.
OK, Irish Osteoporosis Society.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both very much indeed. Right, coming up at 8:15, we'll be getting some expert advice for separated couples on how to co-parent as a unit with Dr. Mary O'Kane. Plus, if you've overindulged this Easter, then fear not, because Aileen Cox-Blundell will have the perfect recipe for a guilt-free, healthy berry tart. That's at 8:45.